Welcome back. Today I've got a somewhat gentler game for you guys. Things might even get a little ASMR. That's right, we're playing the Vagabond Aid strategy, and I specifically found a game with lizards in it to try it out. I feel the Vagrant works best for this approach, and I'm just going to set myself up right in the middle. No need to get too fancy after all. Now let's take a quick look at our quests, and wow, incredible. No questing for me then. Well, we have a despot leader, which means I'm probably not going to get harassed by the birds anytime soon, and looking at chat, it seems like our cats player might be kind of new to the game, especially since they crafted the tea on turn 1. That's amazing for me, so I'm certainly not going to stop them. They follow this up with some strategic withdrawals to take back some ground from the lizards and build a sawmill. It takes some serious brass balls to leave your keep undefended with 2 buildings on it on the first turn, but I can't really fault them for wanting to take their space back immediately. Lizards are up next, and they have my sympathies. They started with 2 bird cards, which is kind of a terrible way to start any game of Root. They really wanted to have a couple of mice so that they could take one of those clearings over. It's bad for them, but it does mean that I can help them a little more liberally and not have to worry as much. Birds are up, and the first thing they do is put a suited recruit into their decree. This is generally good for me because it means that if the birds start out racing me, they can easily be turmoiled. And 1 less saboteurs in the decree means if I draw coffin makers, I'm laughing. While I won't knock anyone for how they want to play, I think it's safe to say it would have been better for the birds player if they had put that bird into recruit and the rabbit into move. Alright, turn 1. Here I'm trying to think about whether or not I need to worry about the birds player suddenly putting a card in attack and hitting me very early. They're playing the despot, they've taken a pretty defensive stance on the board, and with no woodland alliance, they're probably not chasing too much cardboard right away. If I was really worried about it, I'd go through the 5-way fox clearing first so that I could be out of range by the time they had their next turn, but I'm not, so we're just going to start from the top, and by the time they might be considering an attack, I'll be out of range anyway. Continuing our incredible string of luck, the first ruin I explore contains the goddamn sword. Since I'm pursuing an aid strategy, that is a problem that I'll have to solve. I am, however, able to get that tea, at the cost of an ambush, but it's well worth it. I want to go into that fox clearing next turn, but for now I can actually complete one of my terrible quests with the tea and the boot that I have left. I do this to kickstart my card draw early, and because I'm trying to get rid of the sword anyways, exhausting the tea here doesn't actually slow down my tempo at all. I consider aiding the lizards for the extra point and to get our relationship started, but they would really appreciate this dominance card, and I don't want to sacrifice the coins in order to get it. I do, however, discard the fox dominance card here because having a handful of mouse cards to aid with is more important to me than lizards being able to score. Cats continue their crafting heavy strategy by setting up a bag, which is nice for me, but I don't necessarily need it. As it turns out, they're going for a workshop-based strategy, which is a popular choice among newer players, but it doesn't hold out in practice, and you'll see why later. Lizards get their mouse garden thanks to the generous support of the Eyrie, and I couldn't be happier. If they're fighting each other, then there's less fighting for me. On their turn, however, the birds do throw their first bird into the battle column, which I think is a good choice, since it's going to help them in the long run. My turn again. It's time to re-enable that tea before we actually need it. This may not have been a bad opportunity to refresh the sword so that I could try damaging it this turn against the birds, but I'm not worried about the cats or lizards hitting me this turn anyways, and I think I have time before it becomes relevant. We explore for our second boot, which is underwhelming, but we do get the opportunity to aid the birds here, and while I'm here, let's see what quest we got after the one we did last turn. Wow. Incredible. Cats take a pretty unambitious turn throwing down a recruiter and recruiting, and then moving to defend what they have. You can see the workshop strategy paying off for them in this early game though, because they're currently twice the points of anyone else on the board. Anyone else being myself, of course. On their turn, the lizards convert the entire population of the Eyrie dynasty into lizards. I do start to realize at this point, though, that the lizards are not in a great spot for me. It's going to be kind of a pain in the ass for me to get my ruins and then come back to visit the lizards to aid them, so I start thinking that I should probably just change tact and focus on the cats instead. Cats are able to battle me more than the lizards are, but in the same vein, they're not very good at it. What's more, they're not going to race ahead of the entire board just because I've given them a number of cards. The bigger benefit for me is that on my next turn I can blow all of these mouse cards, taking the cats to rank 2, and get a bag out of it. The Eerie doubles down on their suited recruiting by putting a fox card into their otherwise rabbit column. I've met at least some people who like the idea of suited recruiting as a dump slot for all your cards, but honestly it just bites you in the end. Then they do me an enormous favor by battling me right here. I don't care about hostility with the birds, but going hostile with the cats would screw me over royal. So having a great opportunity to damage only one item, and that item being the sword, is so perfect for me, thank you. On my turn, I have a great opportunity. If I pull the hammer from these ruins, I can aid the cats to get the bag, aid them again using the bag to fill up my available satchel slots, move to the neighboring fox clearing, and craft the crossbow to put me over satchel limit, allowing me to discard the sword forever. Not only is this going to give me 2 more items and 4 more points, but it's going to save me from ever having to worry about hostility ever again. As an added bonus, I draw some fox cards that'll get me to allied status next turn. Cats continue to make the most of the space they have, and they don't have anyone pressuring them, so there's no reason not to. The problem for me is that on next turn they're going to be at 15 and I'm only going to be at 10, so it's time I start considering how I'm going to stab them in the back. The lizards also realize the extant cat threat and put in some effort to try and slow them down. Boy, that's a lot of ambushes. Glad I don't have to deal with that crap. I think the game actually bugs out here because those dice said 0-0. This is just another example of why I love how the digital meta plays lizards right now. It's a shame that they don't get to score while having this much activity. On their turn, the Eerie is not my goddamn problem. They can stay in that corner for the rest of the game for all I care. With lizards keeping 3 bird cards in their hand to constantly farm acolytes and birds still only having 1 rabbit roost, I'm actually pretty confident that sooner or later the lizards are just going to solve the bird problem for me. My turn again, and it's time to gain points and lose friends. I mentioned earlier that the workshop strat for cats has some drawbacks, and here's what they are. You only have 2 sawmills powering your entire development, so if, for example, someone were to go and destroy one of those sawmills, it would dramatically set back your pace. Before we do that though, we're going to get to allied status and get us another boot, which will make the movement in this turn easier. Because we aren't taking out any warriors when we destroy this sawmill, we avoid hostility, while still being able to score points from destroying our friends' buildings. I could have taken out the keep here if I had wanted to, but I don't really want to be a dick about it, and by leaving it undefended like this, I force the cats player to spend an action to move to cover it back up. While I do want to stay in this clearing to use the mouse cards in my hand to gain some points from the cats, I don't want them spending their entire turn fighting me, so I let them know that I'm not actually here to fight their keep, I just wanted to slow them down. I understand that they don't want to spend the actions to send me into the forest this turn, because the other players are pretty close on their heels. However, if I was a threat to their keep, they would have to commit to it. By letting them know my game plan here, I'm just playing to the strategy they want to follow through with, while at the same time gaining the added benefit of not getting clapped into the forest. I suspected that the Lizards player was more experienced at this table, and he confirms it by warning the cats that they need to start targeting me. He does reveal, however, that he's not in the habit of checking player boards because I have long since evolved beyond the threat of forced hostility. Now that all of my proverbial cats are out of their respective bags, I need a few things to happen in order for this game to go my way. I need the cats to slow down. That's okay, I can manage that myself. I need the lizards to stop the birds. That's not ideal, but I think the lizards are already on path to do that anyways. All they really need is a bunny outcast, which I currently cannot give them. I need the birds to explode, either by their own volition or someone else's. Given all that suited recruiting, I'm not too scared of this not happening. But it does actually have to happen. And lastly, I need to find more cards and more points so that I can get ahead of everyone else. With every quest requiring a sword, those are no longer an option, so my best option now is just to hope for added RNG or to find the coins somewhere. As you might imagine, these are not great choices. The advantage I do have going for me is that workshop cats are going to be doing as much crafting as they can, and they already have 2 rabbit workshops. Lizards remain my favorite faction on digital by attacking the birds immediately. While I cannot explain why they didn't go after the bunny roost, I do love anything that's going to slow down the birds more without me having to do it. The sad news for the lizards, of course, is that they're not in a position to actually build a garden in that fox clearing they've just taken over, so they have to pray for next turn and for the birds not to come attack them in retaliation. Looking at the cats, they're still on pace to stay ahead of the board with their current build rate, so I have to go and put in some more effort to keep them slowed down. The good news for me is that because I'm planning to move on this turn anyways, I can just take every cat with me and tax the cat's actions in order to have them slowed down that way. Because the cats are right after me in turn order, this is less punishing than if I had left them open for someone else to attack, but it still dramatically impacts how much they can accomplish on their turns. Birds get a jump on the anti-cat effort by taking out one of their recruiters, but now they're in a position to actually outpace me, and I need to worry about that. I do, however, see a potential fox outcast coming up this turn, which is going to solve my problems now that they have 2 rabbits. All I need to hope for is that the cat player doesn't discard a whole bunch of mouse cards on their turn. Back to our turn, and our strategy for this turn is predicated on how many points we can manage to get away with. I could sit in this current clearing and set myself up to score 6 points by aiding my entire hand of the cats, but I could also go and set myself up to score 5 points and collect another ruin item, which will set us up for future turns. This has the added advantage of putting me in a position where I could aid one of the lizards and collect the bag from them if I so wanted to. I actually choose not to bring all the cats with me on this turn because with the Eerie still in the Despot, I don't want to leave any exposed cardboard for them to collect for free. Until they actually turmoil, I'd rather not put the cats in a position where they might leave a building undefended. When the cat's turn rolls around, my prayers to Iron Jesus are answered, because they craft the coins for me. I also remind the table here that the birds have left us an opportunity to turmoil them on Fox, but by next turn they're going to have 2 roosts in Fox, and it's going to be harder. I mean, I'm certainly not going to go over there and turmoil the birds, so someone else can do it for me. The cats actually make very clever use of their crafted improvements here by trying to take out that fox roost. This very nearly could have backfired because of the ambush, but fortunately the cats came prepared. My bird problem? Officially solved. While I'm busily deciding that coins are more important to me than a bag, the cats actually do something pretty revealing. By moving into that rabbit clearing up top in order to outrule the lizards, they reveal that they really care about that clearing. I don't really know why, but whatever the reason happens to be, it means that when I move all of those cats out of there, they're probably going to be forced to move them back. It's a great example of how watching what your opponent commits to can really inform what their priorities are and allow you to exploit them. They do take the time to fight that lone lizard though, and this is probably a mistake on their part because it gives the lizards enough acolytes to actually sanctify something on their turn, and the only thing in Fox worth sanctifying is one of the cats' buildings. Lucky for the cats, the lizards aren't interested. Lizards do, however, saboteur the Propaganda Bureau, which is a great example of why crafting saboteurs is a great decision no matter who you are. Back to our turn again, and our priorities probably haven't changed. I want to feed all of my hand to the cats, get the coins from them, and now that I no longer have the Despot to worry about, I want to open up their buildings so that they're forced to move. And fortunate for me, I can do all of these at once. This turn has set me up with 22 points and 2 coins, which puts me in a pretty good position to stretch for a win on this next turn if I really had to do it. I take the time to check over everyone else's boards to make sure that they don't have any surprises in store for me, because I'm now basically in range of winning. The cats aren't currently a threat to win on this turn, but if they had the coins in hand, they're potentially a threat to win on the next one after it. I know the birds are probably going to make that more difficult for them, but it's still something to be aware of at this point. Here, the cats could actually make use of that tunnels they just crafted by building a workshop in that mouse clearing, and then using tunnels to cover up all of their open spaces except for the keep, in just a single move. I don't think they were very used to the EMP deck, however, so they don't see it on this turn. They do, however, see the opportunity to clap my cheeks like a rented drum, especially after the birds pointed out to them. Honestly, this is probably good for me. Because cats waste their actions on fighting me instead of racing ahead of me, I know that they're no longer a threat to win in the next 2 turns. The worst case scenario for me here would have been if the cats had gone ahead and just spent all their time building, and someone else had come and fought me into the forest. I take a moment to consider what I want to damage here. If the cats do not commit any more actions to battling me, then my win condition lies in aiding the lizards for that sword and using my allied status to clear out some cat cardboard to close out the extra points after I'm done aiding. Because of this, I damage the items I'm not going to need on my next turn if I do need to reach for a win. The cats do, however, have a bird card to use for extra actions, and they do commit it to sending me to the forest. Now, those of you who've watched my recent Vagabond Guide video will know that this is not actually going to solve the problem for the rest of the table. The problem being me, of course. Because no one's actually able to win the game while I'm in the forest, I have actually not lost anything here. Not only is this time in the woods going to allow me to refresh all of my items and repair them, but I'm also going to be able to curate my hand some more so that I can make sure to get all of the cards I want to aid as efficiently as possible. Just in case I had any remaining concerns about the cats managing to pull off a win on their turn, the lizards and birds double down, making sure that the cats can't win by blocking up more rule and taking out more buildings. I take my turn in the forest here, and now my cup runneth over with options. What I want to do is make sure that my hand is set up such that I can aid all 4 cards in one turn, and in order to do that, I need to make sure that I choose a suit that the cats are still going to be in by the end of this next round. That suit is probably not Fox, so away goes the sword. While the rest of this round is largely performative while I wait for my opportunity to exit the forest, it's interesting to watch how everyone prioritizes the remainder of their time. The Cats player sadly has some real-life obligations come up and has to take their leave. Even though Digital sees a high rate of early leavers, I don't see a reason to not give them the benefit of the doubt here. Sometimes real life just does get in the way, and we shouldn't go assuming the worst of everyone. With Cats now controlled by a computer, however, it's open season on Cats, and the lizards take early advantage. It doesn't really matter to me, of course, because neither of these two can wipe enough cat cardboard to actually put themselves in position to win, but it's probably still satisfying to see high numbers and tons of points anyway. This game is actually also a great example of how dominance victories can in fact be the right choice. If someone like the Lizards had actually set themselves up for a Fox dominance win somewhere midway through the game, like when Eerie was turmoiled, I would have actually been in no position whatsoever to stop it, and I don't think the Cats would have been either. Just like making sure that you check all of your scoring opportunities every turn when you play the Vagabond, it's important to check all of your victory conditions you can achieve too. Back to my turn, and victory is only a matter of delivering 4 cards into the hands of the Cats and winning the game. And that's the aid strategy. It takes a little bit of luck and a lot of cards, but it can catch opponents off guard when they aren't used to Vagabonds who aren't destroying everything they own. Thank you all very much for watching. If you'd like to learn more about the aid strategy, or other strategies en route, or if you're just looking for more thrilling ASMR, check out the rest of my channel. Until next time, I'm Nevakanezah saying, be good to each other.